Almost 80 years ago, this town that we call home was born out of a need to provide housing for the many thousands who'd lost their homes as areas of London were flattened and destroyed during the bombing raids in World War II. A huge number of Harlow's residents are the children, grandchildren, and even great-grandchildren of those people who left war-torn London and came here with a hope and a promise of better things. They settled into new homes, they started families, they started new jobs, and they built new communities. They built on the promise of a new life. And nearly 80 years on, we're still hearing promises, and the promises there. What's missing to many is the delivery. We hear, and we've heard it again just now, more promises. But where is it? The focus is misaligned. What do you say now to the children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren who want to continue living in this town, to bring up their own families? What do they hear? Providing you with a home that you can afford isn't viable. What a terrible thing to say to someone, to kill their hope and their aspiration of maintaining their family links to this town. Now, the leader often tells us that he'd love to build more social housing, but based on what we see at the moment, the evidence is just not there to support that claim. At every turn, a deal with developers to provide commercial or affordable housing always seems to take priority over social need. Where is the long-term view that was there nearly 80 years ago? Now, I'll admit there are a couple of sites that are scheduled to have social housing on them, but at the moment they're lying derelict and untouched. The old garage site in Arkwright's being one fine example. Grand signs and pictures displayed of what was to come, some lovely new housing on there, on the hoardings that were surrounding the site. But it's just been left untouched for so long that it's now almost a nature reserve. It's a fine example of urban rewilding that is far more in tune with the allotments next door to it than it is to being a site of prospective homes for eager tenants. But it would be fair to suggest that nothing has happened on that site because not so long ago, the hoarding got a lick of paint all over the pictures of what was going to be promised to be built on it. Just no promise, no delivery. The Arkwright site is an example of the failure of this administration to deliver on the windy rhetoric. It's just another promise broken. But not satisfied with that kind of failure, this administration is now waging war on the people living in permitted developments. Now, I could back a war on permitted developments themselves. You'd find me there fighting with you on that one, but they are just monuments to the failures of the previous government. I stand by the residents, but I do not stand by those landlords that have allowed those buildings to become such an appalling place to live. Poor quality, poor standards. Now, am I talking about the permitted developments or about the previous government? You make your own mind up. This administration blames the occupants of these buildings for many of the issues that are in the town, but they're kept in shocking conditions by the landlords. And they're just not, the residents are not the problem, it's the state of the building. You forget that so many of those people, and will call them residents because they live in our town, you forget that they have been here, so many, for years now. They've got jobs here, they've children here, they go to school here, they volunteer in many of our wonderful organisations, they are valued members of our communities. But such is the case, you even changed the housing rules so that they couldn't claim to stay and have a right here. So where is the compassion over there? Where's the humanity? Show me. If any resident listening to this tonight thinks that there'll be a step closer to getting a council home by removing the tenants of Terminus House or any of the other permitted developments, I've got news for you. I'm sorry, it just ain't going to happen. All that's going to happen is he'll don his high-vis and his hard hat, yet again, climb onto a digger for another photo shoot, then it'll all be knocked down to make way for yet more gentrification blocks with rents that you just can't afford. Are we surprised that so much is promised, but it's happening, not happening? Of course we're not. This is the administration that hired the contractors to repave Broadwalk, a process that's taken so long it makes the painting of the Forth Road Bridge look like it's a weekend DIY exercise. The revitalising of our town isn't something new. It's an organic process that has gone on through decades under administrations of all colours, and it will continue to do so. The issue for the residents that we talk to now are that there's just too much that's either started and stopped, or it's not happening at all. Things get knocked down, sites sit there for ages with nothing happening on them. Now, we all know that it takes a bit of time, but some of them, it's just madness. And as for the works on 5th Avenue and 1st Avenue. Now, I know you're going to say it's probably not your responsibility, but who on earth thought it was a great idea to do both of those roads at the same time? Carnage, traffic chaos, and pollution from the vehicles that are constantly held up in there. It's just madness. You know, because we've talked about this many times, this Labour group, under my leadership, will always support renaissance, regeneration, revitalising, whatever we want to call it. But we must never, ever forget the impact the process has on the trust and goodwill of our fellow residents. There are some simple things that we could do to alleviate some of the pain. Horticultural maintenance, I'll pick on for one, because I encountered some of it just this afternoon. That sort of thing can make a huge difference to the way people see the town and how it impacts on their lives. But what's happened to those planted wildflower beds? Why are footpaths now virtually impassable because hedges are just not being trimmed on time? And are you really proud of those flower beds in the market square that are now so riddled with weeds and other unpleasant items that they're just not anything to be proud of at all? And I also really feel for those poor businesses that were duped into sponsoring a roundabout. So many of them are just a dismal mess now. The appearance of them, I'd be shocked if I was paying for the upkeep of those because they're just not happening. And what are the poor support agencies? This town has a fantastic record of support charities and agencies for the people that are really suffering and need help in our town. At a time when living costs are a constant challenge for many, the support agencies are there. They're just not getting the support from this administration. The grants were slashed or removed, completely removing them, leaving some of them struggling to continue with the fantastic work that they do in supporting our residents, local people who really need our help. This was a political choice. A local political choice made by a group that chooses to distance itself from the nation by calling themselves local Conservatives, not looking after the people. In my 25 years as a Harlow resident, I've learned many things, but the key thing is that the town has a strong beating heart of community spirit, of tolerance and inclusion. It is a home to many fantastic charities and organisations who offer support, kindness and compassion at every turn. Our fellow residents are a fantastic group of people who must not be left behind on this journey of renewal. I know we need it, but we need to take them with us. They need to believe that the promise that was there for their descendants is still there now and is true for them, and that the hope is still valid, for we take them for granted at our peril.